Good morning. Well, as you've heard today, it always starts with a team, and this team is no stranger to innovation. I developed early coronary stents, the first drug-eluting stents, and transcatheter heart valves before spending about 15 years as the chief scientist at Edwards Lifesciences. And my co-founder, Rob Schwartz, who's the guy who invented Watchman, is also an amazing inventor, an electrical engineer, as well as a talented cardiologist. Between the two of us, I added last night, we have 398 pending and issued patents. Rob has 80 more than me, but I don't think I'm going to catch up. Amazing inventors. And this team also has extraordinary experience at early stage development, most of it from Edwards Lifesciences. I'm going to talk with you today about a couple of things that have come out of our incubator. And PHX is a therapy for heart failure patients. As we know, there's 6.2 million of these patients. 50% of these exhibit pulmonary hypertension with exercise. And that exercise, if that degree of pulmonary hypertension actually is related to their event-free survival, as you can see on the right. And of course, the objective of many of our device-based therapies is to offload left atrial volumes. Why do we want to do this? Well, we want to do this because these elevated left atrial pressure drives fluid buildup in the lungs, and this results in congestion and dyspnea and hospitalization, which is a huge problem for these heart failure patients. And this excess volume is also a clear driver of elevated left ventricular pressures, which of course increases myocardial oxygen consumption and workload on the left ventricle. So our solution is unique, and that is that we have developed a right-to-right shunt. And that is the Rivet pulmonary venous shunt. And it's located between the right pulmonary artery and the superior vena cava. This novel precapillary shunt reduces left atrial pressure by limiting pulmonary flow, and it provides afterload relief as well to the right ventricle. And it avoids some of the issues with intraatrial shunts. We've done some comparisons with intraatrial shunts, and you can see that the PVS reduces lung flow, whereas intraatrial shunts increases that. The pulmonary venous shunt reduces right ventricular systolic pressure as well, whereas the intraatrial shunts increase that. So it's no wonder that those have been challenged. And they were challenged in a clinical study that was reported recently and failed. The Corvia trial was a very sophisticated randomized trial, and the patients that failed in that trial were the patients that had increased pulmonary vascular resistance with exercise. So it's kind of no wonder, given those differences, that these patients really were the ones that undermined the study. Well, the PVS offers left atrial decompression for this broad range of patients, not just those with group 2 pulmonary hypertension, but also those with non-PH heart failure by working through the same mechanism. But we'll also work in the group 2 patients that did poorly in the Corvia study. We've done some early work with this, and we used off-the-shelf materials to prove the physiology. About 15 patients were implanted. They demonstrated a very nice reduction in mean pulmonary artery pressures. And we now have an IDE approved by the FDA for an EFS, and we're planning to start that very soon with this proprietary Rivet PVS. And we're looking to raise $16 million in a Series A financing. I also wanted to briefly mention IFPX, which is a unique diagnostic. As was mentioned earlier, CardioMEMS has been a really piloting diagnostic for heart failure patients. I give them huge credit. They demonstrated a 28% reduction in heart failure hospitalizations, through continuous monitoring of patients with heart failure. The problem is it requires patient compliance, which is always an issue in heart failure patients, or basically any other therapy. The other limitation is that it's the wrong compartment. If you measure pulmonary artery pressure, that's not where the fluid accumulates. The fluid accumulates in the interstitial space, and especially in heart failure patients. We know this has been studied effectively, and of course, heart failure cardiologists measure this. They measure it in a very sophisticated manner by pressing on your shins and looking for refill rates, which is really, I think we can do better than that in terms of looking at interstitial fluid pressures. Well, how do we do that? Well, we're going to do that by directly measuring interstitial fluid pressure with a wearable, and we may add other physiological data to improve the predictive analytics around this. It will produce a rich, novel data stream with powerful predictive analytics, and we plan to provide telehealth services in addition to that. These patients with chronic heart failure deserve, and of course there are 5 million of them just in the United States, about 10 or 12 million worldwide. They deserve a better alternative to continuous hospitalization cycles through direct monitoring, and this unique interstitial fluid pressure monitoring is, we believe, the wave of the future. We've done some de-risking to date. We've done some very sophisticated animal studies that show interstitial pressure as a surrogate for invasive metrics of congestion, and that tracks beautifully with pulmonary artery pressure. Sensor prototypes have been manufactured. We've done some data analytics partnerships and AI partnerships, and we are looking for seed funding of about $2 million to do chronic animal work and do our final sensor design freeze. So with that, we'd be happy to meet with you and give you a lot more information about these two opportunities coming out of NXT2. In a few months, we're going to be raising funds also for NXT2, our second iteration of the incubator, and this will focus on a couple of projects that will, we believe, disrupt the left atrial appendage market, and once again, disrupt the heart valve market. We have a couple of projects planned for that, and we'd be happy to have some discussions with you about our future plans there. With that, I thank you for your attention.